The other bit of business is business related to the projects, who you are with the projects. If you have a good sense of the due dates, the timelines, those sorts of things. You have a draft, I know, that's coming in. I haven't checked those today, so they're not due until the 24th, which I guess is Sunday night, which is fine because I'll be out of town and on the road this weekend, so I wouldn't be able to look at them anyhow. That's why I bumped it back to the 24th, and so I will get at those Monday morning when I get back into it again, and get those flipped around pretty quickly. Hopefully Monday morning or sometime Monday, and then the next draft is not due until until December 9th, and that's the what I call the early final draft. And if the early final draft is adequate, then that's your final draft. If not, I'll let you know that same day or day before or whatever, if you turn it in a day or so early or whatever. And you'll have until the 14th to fix it. And the 14th, as far as I can go, because I guess commencement is on the 13th, and I have to turn grades in on the 16th. So the 14th is as far as I can push it. But I'm hoping and assuming that early final draft on the 9th might be just about it for all of you. But if there are big issues, I'll let you know almost immediately. If not, I'll go through and take a bit more slower pass to give you some feedback, and you won't need to submit an additional draft. But you'll know if you need a last draft right away.
So if you say it's sufficient, does that mean it's an A? Or, I mean, you wouldn't say it doesn't need more and then get less than that, would you?
No. If it's sufficient, it's the final product. It gets the final grade, it gets an A. If it's not quite to that standard, then I'll give you the second chance to, kind of bring it up, remediate. I'm hoping that most of the feedback that I give you on this draft that's coming in now will be pretty much all you need in terms of getting there. But if not, I do encourage you to get in touch with me. We'll do a Zoom one-on-one, or we'll get a call in, or we'll go back and forth on email or whatever. The only thing I'm not real high on doing is, every time you do a page, send me a new draft. Don't do that. I mean, do a section or a significant amount of work or whatever before you ask me to see if you're okay with it at that time. And at some point I may tell you, well, just put it all in the next draft, because it's a lot of things get really hectic here in the next couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, in terms of end of school and end of semester and closing out some things and stuff like that. So I can't promise that I can deal with your concerns in less than a day or so. So be sure to take that into account. But yeah, I'll give you as much feedback as I can and as much help as I can. If we need to go one-on-one, that's fine. We'll figure that out too. Other questions or concerns about the final project? Okay, as I said, the recording will go up here. In fact, has it cleared down? It's still processing, but I should be able to get it up in okay, wrong file. I should be able to get it up and running for you in just a couple hours, but a lot of it depends on YouTube. Sometimes they'll queue stuff up and it'll take a couple hours for them to process it through the queue. So it'll be up whenever, as soon as I can get it there. I'll post it up on As You Learn in the next little bit, but as I say, it may or may not be ready to process up through YouTube for a little while. So, questions, overall comments? I'll just, in a preview for the thing about the legal environment, I just mentioned that, you know, in terms of this notion of having in federal code and state code laws that drive what you can do in human subject research is really kind of a new thing, relatively speaking. We didn't have the first law in the books until the mid-'80s, 1980s. And prior to that, a lot of research was done under professional codes of different organizations and things like that. And some research was done without respect to any of those codes. So you had some abuses, and you have some things that we know are important pieces of our understanding of human nature and things like that, that the research on that was done in environments that would not be doable today. And all of this stuff kind of came to a head at the end of World War II, because in Europe, Germany and the Nazi doctors and things like that had done some things that were in the name of research that were true, atrocities and crimes of war and things like that. And so after that, there was a sense that we needed to identify kind of a code of conduct by which human subject research would be done internationally. And so, things came out of that, but then it was still another 30 years before we actually had a federal law that controlled this. And so what I'll go through in that video is kind of the chronology of all that. And then once the federal law comes into place, the kind of the chronology of changes to that, because there have been a couple of amendments and additions to the federal code since then. I don't know that I mentioned in the video, but every state has a section of the state code that either refers to the federal code or is an almost exact duplicate of the federal code. And so if you're going to do human subject research any place, literally in this country and pretty much anywhere around the world, because the UN has adopted the same guidelines as the U.S. Has in their federal code, as its guidelines for human subject research. So it's pretty much what should be done everywhere. And I don't fully blame the Nazis for creating this environment, because you have to realize that we live in a country that in the early part of the 20th century inoculated African American soldiers at Tuskegee with syphilis just to watch the progress of the disease. They knew it was incurable. And so, they infected them just to kind of see how the path of the disease and if any sort of medicines are all helped. And turned out didn't. All of them died fairly horrible deaths over time. And so it wasn't just the Nazis. I mean, there were a lot of people that did not such enviable things. And in the early 20th century, along with the eugenics movement, there was a lot of forced sterilization of prison inmates and mental patients and things like that, under the sense that they were somehow defective and would pollute the gene pool. And that was a common practice in the U.S. up until the 70s and 80s, was to use prisoners for medical studies in terms of medicines, trying new medicines on prisoners, and forced sterilization of women that were in mental institutions. And so we're just now getting, restitution paid out to the families of those women. So it is this this need to have a code of how we do human subject research was not just the result of the Nazis in Germany. It was a lot of things, and just had to be done. And so I lay most of that out in that video. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that I don't think I mentioned fully in the video. So, any other questions or comments or thoughts? And give me, as I said, give me a yell. I mean, send me an email or whatever, and I'll try to give you as much feedback as I can after I get this next round of feedback done. And so if you need help or hit a roadblock or a stumbling block, I think the examples will be useful for you because they're not, they're okay examples, not designed to be perfect, but they are pretty common exemplars of what different folks have turned in at different times. And so those two examples should help you a bit in terms of form and format and things like that. Be aware that sometimes when you convert from Word to PDF and back and forth to different platforms, you get some degradation in the formatting. So if there's obvious margin issues or stuff like that, it's probably because of the translation back and forth a little bit. Okay. Well, that's all I've got. And so, for the good of the cause, we'll call it an evening. I'll post that video up as soon as I can get it up there this evening. And it'll be there for you to look at when you want to take a look at it. All right, folks. Y'all have a good evening, and I guess I won't see you again. So, have a good break, good holidays, and, try to stay safe and stay a little bit clear of the crazy people out there, and you should be just fine. That's my motto: stay clear of the crazy people. Unfortunately, some of those are family, but so it's a little bit hard to do some of that. But do the best you can, and have a good holiday, and have a good evening. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.